Hey y'all, and welcome back to my channel. In this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to make this beautiful V-split tumbler design. This is not a new design by any means. I'm just going to show you the easiest way possible in my opinion. There are other tutorials to explain how to do this, but all crafters are different, and I think it's important that we find the best way for us to make our beautiful tumblers. So having multiple options of how to do a specific design is really helpful. So you have seen me going through all of these gorgeous designs that I handpicked myself and printed by Judy at Gracefully Created. I will link her shop down below as well as her group so you can see what time this will be released on November 1st. This is my second bundle, and the first went so fast. You get a bundle of 12 at a discounted price, and then once these do sell out, they will be released individually. But I strongly encourage you to try to get your hands on one of these vinyl packs so you can save a little money and snag some other amazing products that she has in her shop. So I have chosen this really cute Highland cow print. I have done so many Christmas designs. Jingle Bells is going on repeat in my head, so I thought I would switch it up. I just trimmed my vinyl and lined it up on my tumbler and made sure that there was a little bit of the rim showing at the top and marked it with my nail down at the bottom so I could get a perfect cut. Now the majority of me applying this vinyl is going to be sped up or skipped through, but in the last bundle release tutorial I did go over step by step and allow this to play very slowly so you can watch every detail. If you want to see that, I will link that in the comment section or the description section, and I will also tag it at the end of this video for you. I am carefully applying this vinyl to the tumbler. This is matte removable vinyl, and you will see just in a second right here I realized that I messed up, and with permanent vinyl you would not be able to do this. So I absolutely love that Judy prints on this removable vinyl. I was able to rip the whole thing off, flatten it back out on the piece of paper, and start all over. The vinyl is also very durable, and the ink on the print, even with ripping it off of the cup, it didn't have any crinkles or any damage to the design. Just make sure that if you do have nails, you wear gloves and use a cloth to rub your vinyl down, or you can use a squeegee. And once I have that lined up, I'm gonna take one of my blades for my craft knife. I have misplaced my craft knife and I'm on strike until I find it. So just trim directly down that seam in between the beginning and the end of it, and then lift up a little part of your vinyl and pull out the little strip in between so you get a perfect flat seam. Then we're going to take some painter's tape and tape off the bottom rim right along the line of the edge of our vinyl. I don't go over, but I don't go too far back because I don't want the spray paint to overlap the vinyl. And then I'm going to take some cling wrap and put that slightly underneath the top of the painter's tape to protect the rest of the cup while spray painting. Now once that dries, we are ready to mark off our half points and apply our double-sided tape for our stripes. Now I have done this so many times, I just eyeball it really. An easier way to do this is to trace the top or bottom rim of your tumbler, cut out that circle and fold it in half, and then you will have your half points on each end and you can mark it off that way. The double-sided tape that I'm using is just from Amazon. You get a pack of a bunch of different sizes for like $8, so I will link that below for you. But you can also use a removable vinyl strip. Just cut your strip of vinyl to 1 inch and you can apply that the same way that I'm applying the double-sided tape and use Mod Podge to apply your glitter. Okay, so you probably can't see the line that I have marked on here, but I'm going to line the very top edge of my double-sided tape with that line and then wrap it around with the outer edge of my tape touching the bottom line. Now do remember when you are applying your vinyl or your double-sided tape that we are going to be adding some pinstripes on this, so you want to give a tiny bit of room for that on the bottom so your stripes do not overlap the bottom of your tumbler. And you will see what I mean once we are able to trim this off. There's a little bit between the bottom of our point and the bottom of the cup to allow a little bit of room for those stripes. Once you have this lined up, make sure that you do press it down really well so whenever you remove the top paper, you're not going to pull up any portion of it. And then I'm going to take my craft knife and trim off the excess so that we have a perfect point with our double-sided tape. And when you're doing this, be sure not to press down too hard. As you can see, it took me a couple of tries on this top piece, as I don't want to cut through to the vinyl and lift that in any way. And once I have this removed, you will see the little bit at the bottom that is remaining so that it gives us some room to put on our stripes. Now my original plan for this was to leave the Highland print all over. I was not going to glitter the big section on the back, but I have had Lonestar from PDB glitter and it just matched this so perfectly. I just had to glitter it. Now I could have trimmed off that back portion of vinyl and just remove it and stuck it back down to the vinyl backing, but I didn't, just to use it as a base for my glitter. But right now we are going to glitter our stripes. I'm using Orangutan from PDB. This is a gorgeous burnt orange. It's a perfect fall color and matches this just perfect. As you can see, it gives amazing coverage. That is one of the awesome qualities of PDB glitter. I really could have just left this as is, but I like to go back over with some Mod Podge when I'm using the double-sided tape. I feel like it just makes it bolder. So I brushed all the excess off so I can see my lines really well, and then went in with a paintbrush and some Mod Podge and put a thin coat of Mod Podge on here and applied a little bit more glitter. I did this in sections so my Mod Podge wouldn't dry. And then once I had this completely glittered again, I allowed it to sit for about 2 to 3 hours before I went in with a coat of Rust-Oleum Clear Matte. Actually, I did 2 coats to make sure it was sealed in really well, and then come back and did the larger portion. It's not completely necessary to do this in so many steps. I could have just went straight in to that larger section and applied the Lonestar glitter, but I'm a stickler for glitter moving around or getting in places that it shouldn't. So when doing a cup that has multiple sections of glitter that should not, move from place to place, I always like to seal in between so that I get really nice clean lines. Also, when you are applying Mod Podge or even acrylic paints to tumblers, it's really helpful if you use some sort of flat brush. This is, I would say, a 1-inch flat bristle brush. That way I can get nice crisp lines and they are even. And again, once this has dried for a couple of hours, I went over with just a cheap brush and pretty aggressively wiped off any excess glitter to make sure that it wasn't anywhere on my vinyl, and then sealed with Rust-Oleum Matte Clear Coat. I did that twice and then come straight in once that dried with my Mod Podge again, and we are going to apply Lonestar glitter mix from PDB. This is a chunky glitter, so I did go in with a pretty good thick coat of Mod Podge. You can still see through it, so it's not super thick, but enough to hold on to this glitter and give it really good coverage. I'm just dumping it on, and I pushed my cup down on the excess on the paper to get good coverage on the bottom. Knock any excess off, and then I'm going to go through and pat the glitter down with my hands or a glove, whichever your preference is, to make sure that there's no little bits sticking out. Now, I did allow this to sit overnight. That amount of time is probably not necessary, but I have tried to seal an epoxy after using Mod Podge before, thinking that I have left it for enough time, and it turns like a milky white color, and honestly it just gets worse and worse over time. So I had to completely scrap my cup in the past. So it's always better to be safe than sorry. I went over the whole cup again before applying my epoxy with the Rust-Oleum matte to seal this glitter in and make sure it's not going to move whenever I apply my epoxy. And as you can see, I'm still doing that in sections. I just hate when glitter moves in places that it shouldn't be. So I went over my vinyl first, and then I moved down in my sections to make sure that I did not pull the glitter anywhere that it shouldn't be. Now, I am using probably 25 to 30 milliliters of a little extra ink epoxy. This is not a very thick coat. My goal is basically to seal this in so I can go in with a better coat on top. However, you do get excellent coverage with a little extra ink epoxy, and since we had already sealed this really well and we patted our glitter down, it only took one coat, and then I could sand it and prep it for our vinyl stripes. Once I had this completely covered, I went in with my torch to pop any micro bubbles. You will have micro bubbles regardless of the epoxy that you use, because you are putting this over raw glitter. If it wasn't sealed, it would definitely be more. But we did seal this, and that does help with the roughness of the glitter in applying your epoxy. And I also get a lot of questions why I use a torch instead of a heat gun. A heat gun is good for a lot of things, like heating your part A of your epoxy, or when doing Milky Ways, beach tumblers, anything that you would put like strips of mica that you want to heat your epoxy and sort of blow your epoxy in areas to get the design that you want. However, a heat gun is not great for micro bubbles. It's just blowing hot air on your tumbler, which causes it to heat your epoxy. It can also heat it too much to where it's dripping off your tumbler or changing colors. Too much heat can cause it to yellow. Where using a torch, you can move extremely fast. The heat is coming out with extreme force, and it is popping those bubbles on direct contact. Hopefully that helps answer some questions that I had regarding a torch. Now, I did take 180 grit sandpaper and just lightly go over the cup, especially the top and the bottom rim, and get any lumps or bumps out so that we can apply this vinyl. I'm using textured vinyl from Cricut, and I will link that below for you guys. You will need 4 strips cut at about 0.10 inches. Now, you can use different sizes, of course, and as you see, I have 8 pieces here because I was going to go in with this really pretty pearl color that matches the horns, but I decided in the end not to add that on because this brown textured vinyl was just beautiful as it was. And as you can see, I'm applying this really quickly. It's easy to get those straight lines when you already have a base to go by, which is why I really loved using the double-sided tape. It gives you some perfect lines, and you can pretty much just line your vinyl strips up along the seams of your colors and printed vinyl. I have my 2 strips of vinyl meeting at both little points, and I'm going to go through and trim these. I make a straight line in between the 2 vinyls and then just pull off the excess, and then you'll have a perfect little point with your vinyl pieces matching up. I'm just going to repeat this again below, and then our tumbler will be ready for our final layers of epoxy. Now, I did not have to seal this because this vinyl is permanent and it is a little bit of a thicker stripe, so I'm not concerned about it lifting up. If you do go any thinner, I would definitely say make sure that your tumbler is glossy. So if you have to sand, put another layer of epoxy on. That way you can go over with a matte clear coat and seal in your vinyl so there's not any lifting whenever you apply your final layers of epoxy. I applied 2 final layers of a little extra ink epoxy, and this tumbler was complete. And as you can see, I have a couple other cups in the background as well that I use this vinyl pack on. One of the things that I love when I'm choosing this vinyl is I try to pick patterns that will coordinate with each other, even if it's just a little smidge of color that may pop in another piece of vinyl. That you can get really creative and mix and match those patterns on tumblers to get some really unique designs. Don't forget, this vinyl pack will be released November 1st, and I will link the Gracefully Created group below so that you can join and be updated on any other vinyl packs that they have in future or new products. Also, we have a Facebook group for Brittany Barnes Boutique. Join there as well for lots of giveaways, prizes, and updates on really cool products like this. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel, and I will see y'all next time.